Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us on UpNorthLive Unscripted at 6:30. I am Maya Engel, live in our digital studio, and we are going to hop right into one of our top stories of the day. Now, this is actually a story that first broke yesterday. It was a decision by the Michigan Supreme Court that could impact minimum wages. So, yesterday, in a 4-3 decision, the state Supreme Court ruled to reinstate some ballot initiatives from 2018. Now, again, it impacts minimum wage and tipped workers and paid sick leave. And it's getting a lot of mixed feedback. And determining the real impact of this decision is definitely not an easy task. So some are saying it's a good thing for workers, but bad for others. Some say it's good for business, but bad for business. And some say, it's a bad way to govern, while others say it is actually a win for democracy. So our Mark Gillette goes a lot deeper into this decision, and here is his story.
First step.
Reaction to the Michigan Supreme Court's ruling when it comes to minimum wage is divided.
Definitely disappointed.
The High Court ruling this week paved the way after a 6-year legal battle to bump the state's minimum wage up to $12 an hour, ensure sick paid time off, and slowly phase out the tipped workers' lower wage over the next several years.
The victory today in the Supreme Court involves every worker in the state of Michigan. Minimum wage is increased for every worker in the state of Michigan.
It's been a long time coming, and not in the way predicted. Back in 2018, 400,000 Michiganders signed a petition to make the minimum wage issues a ballot proposal, only to have the state legislature adopt the measures before the election and then amend them after.
It's also progress for justice, progress for the democratic process, progress for the over 400,000 people who signed the petition.
Attorney General Dana Nessel reacted to this week's court ruling in a statement released to us saying, quote, "This is a landmark victory for Michigan voters and a resounding affirmation of the power of direct democracy. The legislature cannot manipulate its power to undermine the will of the people. This ruling sends a clear message that elected officials cannot disregard the voices of their constituents." While some are calling the Supreme Court's ruling a win for workers and a win for democracy, others say the concerns that were first raised in 2018 still hold true.
I don't think they took into consideration the business perspectives on this. This is a potential to, again, hit our restaurants in particular very hard.
Representative Roth points to restaurants like the ones we have featured in previous stories on the topic, who may have to raise prices to cover increased payroll costs, and the potential hit to workers who rely on tips to make ends meet.
They make far more money than minimum wage with tips. This could cut into that, and it's also going to make the price of everything at our restaurants go up too.
Some don't see it that way, citing that restaurants aren't hiring too many people at the current minimum wage, and they point out changing the tip wage may not impact how customers end up tipping.
When I tip based upon the service. I don't tip based upon the wage.
The impact on business owners, employees, and customers' pocketbooks is only one element of this ruling, though, and we may not know its impact for years to come. But many say the bigger impact may be on the controversial adopt and amend strategy by lawmakers.
It shows that the people's right to petition their government cannot be challenged and cannot be struck down.
While those in the chambers of power say the message sent may not be in the state's best interest.
If we can't adopt and amend, are we going to rule only by proposal here in the state of Michigan? And our other proposals that have been pulled off the ballot and put into play, are those now not constitutional also? So I am concerned long run.
And our question of the day today is related to this story, and that is, will the minimum wage increase impact your tipping habits? As of right now, 61% of people say yes, 39% say no. You can scan that QR code on your screen right now to vote. I will keep that up for a little while we bring in Mark to kind of dig a little deeper into the story. So Mark, thanks so much for joining us on Unscripted. I feel like this story is pretty loaded, so there's a lot to talk about.
Oh, it's one of those onion stories. There are lots of layers on the impact on this. And at first blush, you say, okay, minimum wage is going up, so that's good for a lot of workers. They're going to earn more money. Everything is costing more these days, so they're going to get a bump up. Businesses, though, are going to have to compensate, especially for those tipped workers, because if those tipped workers right now are making $3 or $4 an hour, they're going to get bumped up eventually over time to what the minimum wage is. Well, that's going to come out of business owners' pockets. So there is an impact to their bottom line. If you go back to our question of the day, 61% say that if they know that their wait staff is making more money as a base salary, they may tip a little less. So that's going to cut into those tipped workers' take-home pay. Essentially, they may not be getting as much tips, even though they're getting more in an hourly wage. Business owners, obviously, not very many people are hiring at minimum wage anymore. So that may not impact them for their non-tipped workers, but their tipped workers, it's going to cost them more money.
And then, of course, it could end up costing the customer more money in general just to dine out at this restaurant, because they might have to raise their prices in order to pay more for their employees.
Exactly. It's going to create that issue. Now, there are some other elements of this that may be good for workers. Getting more paid sick time. That there's a lot of jobs right now that you don't get much sick time, if any at all. That will change. That will be a benefit. So there's that whole business minimum wage aspect, but then there is the other aspect of this this adopt and amend policy that apparently is relatively common. This one just got an awful lot of attention. Is that still a way that the legislature can work? There are obviously pluses to it and there are cons to it. Just like with every other element of this story, there's a good side and a bad side. And as Representative Roth pointed out, there is concern about if the legislature has done these or will continue to do this adopt and amend policy, are those unconstitutional? And do we embark on another 5 or 6 year legal battle once it has been adopted and amended? So there's a lot of unanswered questions with this story, and where exactly it's going, we're only going to see with time. But as it stands right now, this minimum wage goes into effect beginning of next year and is slowly phased in terms of increases for inflation, and the tipped wage is slowly phased out. So it's going to be a while before we actually can determine, was this a good move or a bad move, and who was it a good move for and who maybe it was a bad move for.
And then going back to the adopt and amend strategy, can you talk a little bit more about, you said it's not totally uncommon. So when is this strategy used?
Well, sometimes it's used when the legislature listens to the will of the people and says, okay, this is something that there's a petition drive underway. Maybe we can be proactive and go ahead and adopt this and tweak it a little bit and get it through. In this case, a lot of people use it as a negative thing, but it's not always a negative thing. The legislature sometimes can be like, oh, there's this calling amongst the masses here in Michigan to get this into law. Let's just go ahead and do it. And we'll adopt it and amend it and change it and tweak it and everything like that as we go along. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but in this case, a lot of people did label it as this is subverting the will of the people by adopting it and then backing it way down and changing the minimum wage to protect business. In this particular case, a lot of people say, whoa, that's not what we intended when we launched this ballot proposal and collected all these signatures. Yes, you adopted it as we intended, but then you changed it to not what we intended. So it's not necessarily a bad practice, but it doesn't necessarily always end up with the adoption and the amending in what was intended from the people who put it on the ballot proposal.
Right. And of course, this all started back in 2018. So 6 years later, we finally get this decision from the state's highest court. Do you think they'll face any more legal challenges moving forward?
I'm not sure if this particular one will, but here's the challenge. There's already been calls from the Republican leadership in the state house to say, let's get back to Lansing here in August and let's proactively get something new on the books. So this is not over. It is not a done deal. As it goes through the legal system, it may be done, but there still could be some changes or some legislation enacted that helps protect the business community in particular, and maybe even addresses adopt and amend, we could see some action, some legislation introduced within the next couple of weeks in response to the Supreme Court ruling. Whether that actually changes the minimum wage as it moves forward or anything that was addressed in that ruling, maybe not, but there could be some tweaks and some new rules and policies and procedures in place here in Michigan within a couple of weeks.
Wow. So this is certainly not over yet.
After 6 years, it's still not over. And if anything, it goes to show you how long the legal battles can take on something like this. You know, you think 2018, that was pre-COVID. A lot in the world has happened in the time this has marched through the legal system. So to be continued, I guess.
Right. Anything else you want to add, Mark, about this story?
No, you know, if you have gone through your email, and I know you have, Maya, or you've been on social media, you do see these two very, very different reactions to this. People praising it as a win, people concerned that it's a major loss. You know, it's been fascinating to look through the very distinct and different reactions to this Supreme Court ruling.
It is very interesting. And like you said, it's not over yet. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see where this ends up. But Mark, thanks so much for joining us and for digging a little deeper into your story today, because it is a pretty complex one. So again, our question of the day is, will the minimum wage increase impact your tipping habits? 61% say yes, 39% say no. Before we take our first break, I want to play one more story that we are working on today related to vacation rentals or Airbnb. So, of course, affordable housing is a big issue in northern Michigan. And right here in Traverse City, a resident actually took some of his concerns to social media because he is frustrated that there have been a lot of vacation rentals popping up in areas where they are not supposed to be. So our Allie Baxter talked with him and has the full story.
Wait and then, you know, and then no new neighbors. And then all of a sudden, we see people over there like building furniture and, you know, putting together this like big crew and everything. So we think they're going to move in.
Richard Williams has lived in Traverse City's central neighborhood for 2 years. He says it's like no place he's ever lived before. So when a neighboring house for sale sold in May, he and his neighbors were excited to welcome a new family to the community.
And then it turns out that the first people that actually stayed in the house were Airbnbers.
This neighborhood is zoned for residential use only, meaning no vacation rentals are allowed here. But that doesn't stop it from happening.
Short-term rental companies that are buying up these residential homes are contributing to the housing problem that we have in Traverse City.
So Richard took his concerns to city staff and social media.
I received a lot of private messages and things from other people that are having the same issues, so I know it's not just me. And they feel so helpless.
City Planning Director Sean Winter's department is responsible for enforcement of short-term rentals, an umbrella term that refers to vacation rentals and tourist homes. The first step, he says, the department takes when a potential unlicensed rental is reported and investigated is
to seek out compliance before we issue tickets and things like that. And frankly, our magistrate won't support the tickets if we haven't tried to correct the problem first without that step.
But Sean says it's tricky to prove a property is in violation.
People will take their posting down in the morning, so when city staff is present, we can't see that they're advertising, and then we see that they reposted it that evening. And so we have properties where they do that every single day, week after week, and we have a log of all that activity.
They can see the activity through a program the city spends about $23,000 on each year.
Because we look for two things. We look for the illegal ones that are in districts where they're not allowed to happen. We also look for the ones that are in districts where they are allowed to happen, but they don't have a license. And so then we let them know that they have to have a license. So when we look through these, we'll look through them periodically. So like, here's an example. Here's a property and it's advertised on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 different websites.
Do you think the city has a problem with illegal vacation rentals?
Well, I would say any community, including ours, that does have prohibitions either in certain districts or throughout their jurisdiction, they do have bad actors that are willing to violate. There's a financial incentive there for them to operate these, and sometimes making money can trump doing the right thing for the community and by the rules. It is really challenging once summer ends and you see many, many empty dwelling units that aren't being occupied by visitors at a time when we have residents being forced to move out of the city because they can't find any housing.
Welcome back to Unscripted, and thanks so much for joining us on this first day of August. And it is a warm one, not as sunny as it was yesterday, but definitely still pretty warm out though. So let's bring in Joe from the Storm Team Weather Center. And Joe's having a bad hair day, so he doesn't want to show his face today. But luckily, we can still see his graphics. Hey, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah, Jeff, our engineer, have been furiously working on our webcam back here, and we were not successful. So we're gonna that's okay.
That's okay.
We're just gonna show you the actual weather graphics. But I'm here, and there we go. Warm day today, Maya, once again, and it could have even been warmer if we didn't have all these clouds around. There's a look around northern Michigan. You see the bridge. Some folks there enjoying. Well, why not? The afternoon there around Torch Lake near Bel Air, Traverse City, pretty cloudy, and the same thing there at Cadillac currently. High temperatures today, well, there they were, widespread 80s across northern Michigan once again, and it's really muggy still. We are eventually going to get a little relief from that. It's going to start cooling down a little bit back into the 70s next week. I'll show you that here in a moment. But the main weather feature tonight is low pressure right there in southern Wisconsin. Around that, there's actually been some pretty heavy rain. Here's radar. and you can see that swirling mainly across the lake in Wisconsin. In fact, there has been some very heavy rain here on the other side of the lake. In fact, those red areas, those are flash flood warnings. Some spots have had 4 to 6 inches of rain this evening. We'll jump across to our side of the lake, and there's what's going on here. There's not a lot of rain. We have a couple showers there in Newaygo and parts of Mecosta counties, and then just north of Cadillac, actually not too far there from Manton, a little shower going up there, but the rain not as widespread. And I really don't think we're going to get a whole lot here tonight. There's stormcast, few showers tonight, but then by tomorrow, clouds in the morning will give way to some sunshine later in the day, and we'll see a beautiful, beautiful day on Saturday with lots of sunshine. And the humidity, the mugginess factor, we'll see an improvement in that too. There's a look at our dew points. Notice how they kind of drop off as we get into the weekend. And then by Monday, we're in the mid-50s, and that's kind of in that pleasant category coming up. A couple events to check in on. Elk Rapids Harbor Day is continuing. Sunday's the cleanup day, but not bad, 80s. Sunday, maybe a shower or storm. And also the Rogers City Nautical Festival, 80s, although we drop into the 70s. Same thing there, Sunday, chance for a shower or a thunderstorm. Look at Saturday, though, Maya. Beautiful weather, 80s and sunshine. Sunday, though, can't rule out a shower or storm. So Saturday should be the better of the 2 days. And then, as I mentioned, it does cool back down into the 70s next week, Monday through Thursday.
Thanks, Joe. And hopefully you'll be able to see your face again tomorrow. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will see what Harrison Beebe is up to today. Stick around. You're watching Up North Live Unscripted. It is that exciting time of the evening where we bring in our sports director, Harrison. Harrison, what's going on this first day of August?
It is. It's the first day of August, indeed, which means we're hitting the home stretch for the Northwoods League season. So I'm here at Turtle Creek Stadium. I think there's 10 games to go left in the regular season for the Pit Spitters as they're taking on the Battle Creek Battle Jacks tonight. But the real story today, Maya, we had it in the Jimmy John Sports Corner. Field manager Josh Reban, after 6 seasons in charge of the Pit Spitters, is going to step down after this season. I'm watching him hand off the lineup card right now to the umpires. So he's literally in the home stretch of his career with the Pit Spitters, which is kind of bittersweet. He's been a part of this franchise from the beginning, led them to Northwoods League titles in 2019 and 2021, and just really been the face of this franchise since it started up. So it's going to be weird to not see him at the ballpark starting next year. But it was a decision he felt was best for family purposes, and he just took an assistant coaching job at Western Michigan for their baseball program down in Kalamazoo. So that'll eat up a lot of time in his life as well. And he just kind of said to me earlier today when we talked, he was like, yeah, I kind of added up. It's going to be close to 150 baseball games a year. And that's a lot to kind of juggle when you've got a full-time family as well. So sad to see him go, but obviously he's doing what's best for him. And yeah, pretty noteworthy development as far as the Pit Spitters go here for this home stretch for his final times in charge, and then to see where the team goes forward after this year.
What else are you working on for sports tonight?
The Tigers are back, so they're back at home. Got the Kansas City Royals coming to town. We'll see if that series goes any better than the Guardians kind of taking care of them and dropping 2 of 3 to Minnesota. We'll find out. These were this homestand with the top 3 teams in the AL Central with Kansas City, Minnesota, and Cleveland. So dropping 3 straight series to all those teams basically, in my opinion, kind of takes them definitely out of the AL Central race, but it's not looking good for the wild card either at this point. Of course, judging by those trades they made the other day of Flaherty and Mark Canha, it appears, they're looking towards the future again, but they kept Mr. Screwball, as we all know, so that was clearly a top priority for them. But Tiger baseball tonight, Pit Spitter baseball tonight. Those Olympics are still going strong.
A lot of exciting events happening today. So, Harrison, that is all the time we have for sports. So we'll see you tonight at 11 o'clock, and we are going to take another quick break, but we'll be back in just a few minutes. Checking in one last time with our question of the day. Will the minimum wage increase impact your tipping habits? 60% say yes, 40% say no. You can scan the QR code or go to our website, upnorthlive.com, to vote on our question of the day. But that'll do it for Up North Live Unscripted tonight. We will see you back here tomorrow night. Take care, everyone.